Tonikaku Kawaii, or Tonikawa Over the Moon with You, was the best romance anime to air in 2020. A fact undisputed because its competition included a show about characters specifically not getting together, a show where the characters only seem to get together not because of their chemistry, but because the narrative forced them to, and a series where everyone was in a relationship with the protagonist, and I dare you to convince me otherwise. Not that this fact made villainous bad, quite the opposite, but I have long since stood by a belief that harem anime and romance anime are two different things. That's a discussion for another time. Tonikawa follows a newlywed couple and the hilarious antics that occur because they are complete strangers. The guy is a super obvious nerd, and the snubbed best girl candidate for last year is probably from the moon. Is she actually? I doubt the show will tell us, but hey, Eren Yeager made it into his father's basement and Guts made it off the damn boat eventually, so anything is possible if the mangaka puts their mind to it. So ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Akada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, Tonikaku Kawaii. Let's jam. Okay, let's get the weird stuff out of the way. What do I mean by weird? Well, by the end of episode 1, two strangers, who previous to this had never met before, get hitched. Not in like a church and bells sort of get hitched, and not in the kind of like Las Vegas get hitched, but instead in a very formal and Japanese businessman kind of way. Just go to your local government office, fill out the paperwork, and bing bang boom. Marriage. You see, I've made jokes many times in the past, in my young and somewhat romantically frustrated years, that anime romances are painfully slow. They would spend episode upon episode going back and forth on all of this will they, won't they plot lines. They'll drag in one, perhaps two more romantic interests for extra drama, and after all of that, the best we get as the final episode starts to roll its credits is that the main characters finally hold hands. Not kiss, not propose. The farthest we get after 24 episodes is hand-holding. Anime romances back in the day were masters of the narrative blue ball. Heck, one of the reasons why Clan Ad was so freaking impactful for me as a young otaku was because it had a whole second season after the two characters got into a relationship. Something most never even considered as an option. They got married. They had a kid. Bad stuff happened after that, but that's not the point right now. The point is that this was a rarity. So then, in 2020, of all years, we get a romance that sees the characters marry in episode 1. And I thought to myself, wow, okay, what's the catch? The circumstances behind this were really weird, right? Like the guy, NASA, he sees this cute girl, and what does he do? He tries to call out to her, only to get hit by the universal master of plot development, Truck-kun. Turns out, however, that the cute girl, Tsukasa, saved NASA, even though it still looks like he's literally dying regardless, but that's okay. And despite them being both complete strangers and knowing very little about one another, they decide to marry pretty much right there and then. There was actually a period of time where she leaves and comes back, but it all happens in like the span of a single episode, so that hardly makes a difference. That's this show's quirk. That's the unique aspect that it holds over all others in the genre. The characters are married from the get-go. But here's the thing though. Remember how I said that this show was really interesting for just how quickly it's moved through its primary romance? They're already married. That's a huge development. Is it though? Because besides that act, the signing of the paper, our two leads keep acting like hand-holding, once again, is such a huge development. The rest of the episodes beyond number 1 have followed very similar threads to others in the genre, mainly because the situations are the same, but the context is just a bit different because, well, they're married now. There's an inherent level of trust and understanding between our characters because of that, even if they know little else about one another. So, because of this, there are, of course, limitations on what the story can do. You can't really put our characters into a handful of embarrassing situations that might make them question if they actually want to be with one another, continuing the whole will they, won't they mentality, because they have already made the choice. However, that does open the door to some other potential options. Because they have made a choice, it is very hard to go back on decisions that huge without damn good reasoning. Our couple are far more likely to go way out of their way to justify their decisions rather than admit what they did was extremely stupid. At least, that's something that could happen. But Tonikawa is far too sweet for that. The utter sweetness is almost infectious. Despite their relationship being weeks, or in some cases here, only hours old, their love becomes one like they have been together for decades. If a plotline comes along giving us that thought that maybe one of our protagonists might have second thoughts, that is clearly and cleanly wiped away by the other, saying very matter-of-factly that such a thing would never even cross their mind. And they absolutely believe it, which becomes the make or break it aspect of the show, what makes you love it or hate it. Because this is a romance without drama. This is a romance that lives and dies on the knowledge that our characters have become so quickly, so devoted with one another that no one-off plotline is going to be able to throw a wrench into that. Because even thinking that you could break these two apart, despite how realistic such drama would be, is foolhardy. Like, for comparison, let's look at some of the narratives that the community at large have considered to be the best romance anime in history, and then ask yourself, how much drama exists in them? Your Lie in April. The entire series builds up and executes an ending that is the epitome of the word. Toradora, the tsundere archetype, lives and breathes drama. Clannad. Even if drama doesn't exist between our main characters, their relationships and the relationships with others can be the focus of drama instead, and even then, drama still rears its ugly head. Tonikawa has none of that. No surprise tragedies, no second guessing or distrust between our leads, no other characters being successful at driving a wedge between our characters. Not that the series doesn't try to its credit, but divorce for our characters seems unlikely. So what replaces that? How does this romance deal with a lack of drama? Well, with two things, the immediate and the long-term narrative arcs. In the long term, instead of constantly raising the question of if our characters will get together, the series instead asks the question of why? Why did they get married? Why did that seem like such a good idea? What is it about their chemistry or their relationship that made marriage such a compelling option? Now, since this is a long-term narrative arc, they're probably not going to answer that anytime soon, for the same reasons why most shows take forever to get their lead romance actually going, because the mystery behind it all is such a good drive for the plot. Speaking of mysteries, of course, Tsukasa herself is really like some kind of Princess Kaguya stand-in, right? She gives off this otherworldly presence, she's able to save Nasa without taking a scratch in a very Superman from another planet type fashion. Her old foster family, as it were, got her a literal moon rock from the real NASA to help calm her. There's so much fascination with the moon here in this series, it's a wonder that the author isn't a fan of Type Moon. Oh wait, there are quite a few references to other nerd media in this series, but I feel like the Natsuverse ones are the most blatant, not only in direct references, but also in subtle ones, like character personalities. Chitose is only a few steps away from being a Tosaka clone, or at least a Luvia stand-in, if only she would give us a solid Ojo-sama laugh. And the twin maids trope has connections with the Natsuverse so heavily, it just makes it very obvious that the mangaka is, at the very least, a big fan. But that's just a meandering digression. Where was I? All right, the short and long-term narrative arcs. In the short term, if there's no drama, and the mystery is something that the show only barely touches on occasion, then why the hell is it entertaining? Wouldn't that be like watching a newlywed couple go all lovey-dovey in that embarrassing to watch kind of way? Thankfully, no. Instead of drama or a heavy focus on the mystery aspects, the series instead leans on the comedic chops of its source material. So instead of asking the hard-hitting philosophical questions of, was this the right thing to do? We instead get the gentle comedy that the situations call for. This is not a series that relies on verbal jokes, but it uses its animation and design for a very entertaining kind of slapstick, alongside the embarrassing realizations our characters have about their situations. Yes, they just met, but they're married now, so that means that they should be sleeping in the same room. Elements that are just normal and everyday to a normal couple are now points of interest for this couple that skipped so many steps in the game of life that the mundane is now anything but. For me, though, there is this kind of nostalgic way that the show handles itself that I find endearing. There are so many elements to this show's humor that align with my own, but more so it's the kind of thing that I probably would have found stupidly hilarious like 8 years ago. I still enjoy it a lot now, but it's far more the kind of thing that I would have eaten up back in the day. Not surprising, considering that the mangaka is far more famous for his previous work, a comedy series by the name of Hayate the Combat Butler, which had an anime adaptation back in 2007, one that I used to watch on my old $100 computer during high school. Loved that show. Probably doesn't hold up now. Scared to double check. All this series is truly missing is a musical insert of Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra to match up with the series' title, even if they did some kind of cover of it similar to what Evangelion did with the same song. It's almost too perfect to not use it, especially if they have the ability to, but who knows what the licensing fees for such a thing would be like in this day and age. So here I am, recommending it wholeheartedly. Why do I keep falling for this? It's not even a realistic love. Like, I dare someone to find a romance that comes together like this. It's almost too perfect in how much misunderstanding leads to so much love and passion in the main character's relationship. I promise you that in real life, both in love and with friends, miscommunication and misunderstanding is far more likely to end a relationship than make it grow stronger. I may be speaking from experience here, but I think that because it's not realistic is the reason why I love watching it so much. It's an anime. It's not real. You know that. I know that. The creators know that. So why shouldn't they show me a story that wouldn't really work in real life, but would under these circumstances? This is the perfect way to do it, and damn if it isn't entertaining. So should you watch Tonikawa? Yes, though if you are expecting much of the show's mystery to be revealed before the end of just this one season, well, you might as well start prepping to be disappointed, because that's not happening. As far as a sequel as well, we have some confirmation of an OVA that is in the works, but nothing for a continuing season yet, which is a depressing thought. Hayate the Combat Butler had 3 full seasons, 2 of which were double cour, while Tonikawa, by comparison, has just this measly little 1 cour season. It really does deserve more, but so do so many shows these days. As usual, there will be links in the description to watch Tonikaku Kawaii on Crunchyroll, and of course, a very special thank you to my patrons, whom I do love and deeply appreciate. Specifically patrons Hector Montemayor, Rune Jacobson, Ryfin Bonaparte, Siri Yamako, Wago221, and Calhoun Boy, who are especially awesome. You guys are great. And until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, watch more anime and stay frosty.